Good morning, student. Today we will discuss the second chapter of Indian economy development, the Indian economy 1950 to 1990. In this chapter, you will come to know the goal of India's 5-year plan. In already we have discussed, and you also know about the development policy in different sectors such as agriculture and industry from 1950 to 1990, and you also learn to think about the merits and limitation of a regulated economy. You all know basic there are three problems: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. There are different types of economic system: socialistic economy, capitalist economy, and mixed economy. In capitalist economy, these problems are solved by market forces, that is price mechanism. In socialist economy, that can be solved by planning, and in mixed economy, that problem can be solved by planning as well as price mechanism, that is market forces. Indian economic planning, you all know that at the time of independence, Indian economy was both backward stagnant economy, and government take important steps to revive that economy. So government set up planning commission in 1950 and introduce 5-year plan. Plan is a document showing detailed schemes, program, strategy work out in advance for fulfilling an objective. Basically, there are four major objectives in Indian economic planning, that is economic growth, economic equality, self-reliance, and modernization. We have already discussed about the goals of 5-year plan in previous class. Now today we will discuss some agricultural development that was introduced on that time period. In agricultural development, certain measures to promote the growth of agriculture sector. One is some institutional change in Indian agriculture system, that is known as land reforms. The main objective of land reforms program was to achieve equity in agriculture, Indian agriculture. In land reforms program, government introduced certain steps. First, abolition of intermediaries, and tried to establish a direct relation between actual tiller of the soil, farmer, and the government, and given ownership right to the tenant so that they will take initiative to increase output and try to improve the growth in agriculture. And second steps, that is land ceiling. Land ceiling refers to fixing the specified limit of land which could be owned by an individual. Beyond that specified limit, all lands belonging to a particular person would be taken over by the government and will be distributed or allotted to the landless labor, small farmer, marginal farmer. The main objective of land ceiling to promote equity in the agricultural sector. The next step is regulation of rent. Government also fix up the amount of rent which would be charged. There are different types of rent charged in different states. So government pass a legislation so that 30 to 40% of total produce should be charged as a rent in different states of India. Next step is consolidation of land holding. There are different lands are fragmented, so government pass an order so that the fragmented land can be consolidated, and they try to introduce the cooperative farming system to increase agricultural production as well as productivity. The land reforms programs are successful in Kerala and West Bengal. Second steps that government have taken regarding agricultural sector, that is green revolution. Green revolution, it is introduction of modern technology in Indian agriculture system. If you seen that picture, that India already import wheat from USA with the public law 480 PL 480, and by the introduction of green revolution program, India produce more crops and they reduce the import from USA. In green revolution program, actually there are certain steps taken. One is use of HYB seeds, high yielding variety seeds, use of chemical fertilizer, pesticides, use of modern technique, tractor, harvester, and improve irrigational system to increase production and productivity in Indian agriculture. It is one of the important steps that India initiated to increase production and productivity in Indian agriculture. The first phase of green revolution, that was mid 60s to mid 70s, and second phase of green revolution mid 70s to mid 80s. The impact of green revolution, it increased the marketable surplus, it increased the buffer stock food grains benefit to low income group, it increased the income of the farmer. But there are certain drawbacks of green revolution. It is limited to certain crops, rice and wheat. Other crops are neglected. It also increases the regional imbalance, regional inequality, and it also increases the inequality of income among the farmer. Only the rich farmer can avail the benefits of green revolution. The small farmer cannot be able to take the benefits because of lack of capital. And it also increases the environmental pollution because of use of chemical fertilizer. It increased the marketable surplus or marketed surplus, and it also related with miracle seeds that you already know, that is HYB seeds. So reforms in agriculture, there are some institutional reforms, that is land reforms, technical reforms, that is green revolution, and general reforms, that is credit facility, irrigational facility, organized market, minimum support price, that was taken on that particular time period 1950 to 1990. Now if we go to the industrial development in industrial sector, on that particular time they are suffering from lack of capital. So the role of public sector is very important on that particular time period, because shortage of capital with private sector, lack of initiative for private sector, objective of social welfare, that was also neglected. So the role of government sector, the public sector, is very important. Now regarding industrial development, India 1940 industrial policy, first industrial policy introduced 1948. The second industrial policy resolution was adopted in India in 30th April 1956. In this Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, industries are classified into three: Schedule A, Schedule B, and Schedule C. In Schedule A, this first category comprise industry which would be exclusively owned by the state. In this schedule, 17 industries were included, like arms, ammunition, atomic energy, heavy and core industry, aircraft, oil, railways, shipping, etc. In Schedule B, 12 industries were placed which would be progressively state owned. This includes like aluminium, mining, industry, machines, tool, fertilizer. Schedule C, it consists of remaining industry which would be provide for the private sector. So there are Schedule A, comprise industries exclusively owned by the state. Schedule B, 12 industry which would be progressively state owned, and Schedule C comprises of remaining industry which would be private sector. Now India introduced Industrial Development and Regulation Act 1951, which empowered government to issue license for setting up new industries, expansion of existing one, diversification of product. Government introduced licensing policy. Now the role of small scale industry also very important, because the small scale industry create employment generation, need for protecting from big firms. Government take some steps. Government set up a committee in 1955 for the village and small scale industry committee, which is known as Karwa committee, for the development of small scale industry. If you go through the sectoral composition, you will understand that the GDP contribution by the agriculture sector reduced, and the contribution of industrial and service sector in that time period increased, which is a good indicator for economic development. Now the trade policy. Regarding trade policy, we introduce import substitution policy, that is inward looking trade strategy. Import substitution refers to policy of replacement or substitution of import by domestic production. The basic aim of this policy was to protect domestic industry from foreign competition, and instead of importing goods from foreign country, domestic industry would be encouraged to produce them in India. To protect the domestic industry, government introduced tariff and quota. Tariff refers to tax levied on import goods, and due to the imposition of tariffs, the import good become expensive, which is discouraged to import more. And quota refers to fixing the minimum limit on import of a commodity by a domestic producer. Now if we go through the critical appraisal of the industrial development 1950 to 1990, the proportion of GDP changes. The industrial sector share increased 11.8% in 1950-51 to 24.6% in 1991. That is, diversification of industrial sector become well diversified. More small scale industry role also important, that is also increased. Licensing policy introduced. Public sector role become important, and remarkable contribution created by the public sector for promoting industrial base. So these are some important questions regarding this chapter. That is, first 5-year plan introduced is 1951, Planning Commission set up 1950, Land Reform Program successful Kerala and West Bengal, first page of Green Revolution 1960-70, And second, 70 to 80. Industrial policy introduced in 1956. There are three schedule and Karbe committee related to small scale village small scale industry, and there are two protection policy, one is tariff and quota. Thank you.